Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Carver Conservation Commission meeting for Wednesday, February 19th, 2025. This meeting is being cablecast by Area 58 Community Access Media, Channel 15, and will be posted by Area 58 on YouTube as soon as possible. We've got a somewhat robust, I guess, agenda this evening, so we'll get right into it. Our first order of business is a discussion of an emergency certification issued to 80 Makepeace Company, 0 Rear Wenham Road.
Yes, so I sent a copy of this application to you guys. It's a permit from 2001. Essentially, the building inspector at the time had asked for them to remove a trailer, which was considered a safety hazard. And I'll pass this around. This is the location of where it was located. It's on 80 Makepeace property. The address is 0 Rear Wenham Road. It's where the Swan Hall Solar Project is, but it's kind of behind, right along one of the bogs and next to, I think it's Fresh Meadow Pond up there. Again, the permit required them to move a trailer which was deemed a safety hazard by the building inspector, and so the Conservation Commission issued an emergency certification form, which is, an emergency permit for, when they don't have really time to go through the whole process, and they need to get something done quickly. And at the time, it was recorded by our conservation agent at the time. Typically, these aren't recorded because they only are valid for 30 days. So when they went to do a title search, they found that on the title of the property, and there was issues. So they asked, Mike McVeigh from 80 Makepeace reached out and asked me to bring it up with you guys and just, ask if we could issue a letter to, kind of say that that's been resolved. So I went out to the property and I sent you guys some photos today of the property. Again, it's over 20 years ago now, so there's nothing really to see at this point. There's no evidence that there was ever a structure there. So I recommend that we issue the letter. I'd be happy to read the letter to you guys as well.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, please.
I just wrote, "To whom it may concern, in regard to the attached emergency certification form issued to 80 Makepeace by the Carver Conservation Commission on December 26, 2001, for the removal of an abandoned trailer and filling of the existing crawl space and septic system, the Commission has determined that the project was completed in compliance with the specifications of the permit and considers this matter closed. The emergency permit was only valid for 30 days. And it expired on January 26th, 2002, over 20 years ago. I personally visited the site and the work, and I saw no disturbance or sign of any structure. Please feel free to contact me at the number below should you have any questions. Thank you, Emil Singh, Conservation Agent."
All right, does anyone have any questions, Emil, on this?
No. No, I appreciate him taking the time to trek all the way out there.
Yes,
in
in the ice.
The pictures looked like nothing was there.
Right.
It was quite beautiful out there, but it was also very windy, and
Cool.
It was a frozen swan in one of the canals. So it's been really, really cold lately, so that kind of stuff is going on out there. But yeah.
Just one?
Yep.
Oh, so someone's alone.
Yeah.
That's too bad. All right, I will entertain a motion for a approval of the letter that Emil has written and the Conservation Commission's permission to send it.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and second to approve Emil's letter and allow him to send it out to 80 Makepeace. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that is approved 5-0. And that takes care of our discussions and business. All right, getting right to our hearings, public hearings. We have 2 continued public hearings, which we'll start with, and then we'll get to our new public hearing after these 2. 19C Ward Street, DEP file SE126589, request for an amended order of conditions. Since this is continued, I don't have to read the entire thing. So I was not here at our last meeting, so Dave, do you want to kind of fill us in and then see what we got to do next, or Emil?
Yeah, well,
I'll
this
leave
was
that,
actually continued from 2 meetings ago, so you were here.
Oh,
This
yes,
is
okay.
This is the floating solar project.
Oh, okay.
19th Ward Street, yeah. I have the plans here if you guys want to take a look. And I think Sarah's here as well. Is there anything you want to add?
Nope, just, I guess for the record, Sarah Stearns with Beals and Thomas, and with me are representatives from New Leaf Energy. Per Emil's comment, we did speak about this 2 meetings ago and had a good discussion. We had requested a continuance just so we could start the process with the planning board and just report back if we had any requested changes. We're not at that point yet with the planning board, but you know, we're still kind of going through the process. So we're here to answer any remaining questions or continue the discussion as the commission sees fit. But we don't really have anything new to add for our last discussion.
All right, does anybody else have any questions here from the board?
No.
I do remember what this is now. It's a public hearing. Are there any comments from Ms. Sheehan? If you wouldn't mind, please, the microphone's right here. Sign up sheet, come in. Sit right across from me, please.
Hi, thank you for letting me comment. Just some questions about the site and what's been happening out there. As you may recall, in 2022, Save the Pine Barrens. So I'm Meg Sheehan from Community Land Water Coalition. We represent individuals and groups in Carver concerned about wetlands and protection of our waterways. You may recall that in 2022, we filed a request for an order, request for a determination of applicability with regard to earth removal permit 101 that was issued by the Carver Earth Removal Committee for Cedar Meadow Cranberry and on lot 120, map 120, lot 5, which is near or adjacent to this area. And we're studying the plans that have been provided for this floating solar, and it's not clear to us exactly where these 4 reservoirs are in relation to the proposed earth removal. So there was a public meeting that was held on that, and the Conservation Commission at the time denied the RDA and said there was no requirement for, it was E.J. Pontiff at the time, Cedar Meadow Cranberry, to file a notice of intent to do the earth removal project. We appealed that to Mass DEP in February of 2022, and they issued a superseding order of determination saying that a notice of intent was required for the earth removal operation, again, somewhere around where this project is on lot 120, map 120, lot 5, I'm sorry. So our question is, did the landowner, E.J. Pontiff, Cedar Meadow Cranberry, file for an order of conditions under the Wetlands Protection Act for the earth removal as DEP stated they were required to do? Does anyone know?
That's a good question. I don't know 100%. I want to say no because I'm not familiar with that project, but I would have to go, do a little research in my files and make sure. I will show you this though. This is an overview that Beals and Thomas provided of the site, and these are so this is reservoir number 1, 2, 3, and 4, and I believe the property that you're referring to is this one here. It's owned by the same cranberry grower, but Anne brought up this same permit to me a few weeks ago, and we were discussing, it doesn't appear that any earth removal has taken place there, and I'm not aware of any order of conditions permit for earth removal in that location. So just so you're aware, you know, I think these are locations of the proposed project that we're discussing right now. And I think this is the general, you know, property that you were
Yeah, I think
referring
it's
to.
actually here, when we went on the site
Yeah.
visit, I understood that it was there.
And that's, you know, all wetlands, you know, nice natural wetlands. There's a stream that flows all the way down through these bogs
Mhm.
here, so it would require a filing, would be my, but I'm not aware of any permit from them.
The one thing I'll say is I live near those bogs, so I haven't seen sand coming out of the area of Lot 5. So if an earth removal permit was issued and they're in the process of removing sand, they're not removing it from that lot.
Yeah, so that's why it's confusing, because the Earth Removal Committee's active permit list that they maintain, and they issued a few, maybe a month or so ago, January 15th, 2024, it states that earth removal is ongoing on Lot 5/6, which was the site of the RDA. So, you know, if there's earth removal out there going on, according to the Earth Removal Committee, and they have even issued, you know, the report stating how much earth has been removed there, we think that that should be looked into, along with, you know, the historic earth removal that was going on in order to create the reservoirs and the bogs. And we think there should be an investigation of how deep the ponds are and how deep the earth removal was. And there are permits from the ERC that can be obtained and looked into to see what was removed from that site.
Yes, I agree, and I'd be happy to look into that with our earth removal staff member. As you know, we haven't had anyone in the town hall who's like, you know, designated for that for a long time, so now we have someone, and I will discuss with them and find out what I can about that earth removal permit, because I agree, it's, you know, if we should figure out if that is going on.
Yeah, and what kind of alterations there have been, and so that, in our view, impacts whether the delineations for the current projects are actually accurate, because we've run across this, you know, in a number of situations in Carver and Plymouth where there's been earth removal, and then, you know, companies come in and try to put a project on top of something that used to be a wetland, bordering vegetative wetland that's been filled, for example. So in our view, the wetland delineation is not accurate because it's not showing where the actual wetland was that was filled, that's no longer there.
Well, yeah, I see what you're saying, but at the same time, there's not necessarily any proof right now that there has been any of those activities that are, you know, ongoing. And the bogs, or the ponds themselves that are being, you know, these are being proposed on are considered man-made bog reservoirs, and you know, the state isn't taking any jurisdiction over those. So as far as I'm aware, and Sarah, maybe you can correct me, there's no increased impacts directly to resource areas proposed as part of this project under this Wetland Protection Act.
Right, the only area on what we're calling Reservoir 2, I believe, where it has a
Yep.
BBW delineated surrounding it. Depending on where the staging area ends up, where we're proposing it now, we're not showing any impact. I just want to bring that up as the one pond that has BBW flagged, or one of the two ponds
Could you
that.
put your
Yeah.
map up there? We can make
Yeah,
it.
I know.
Yeah, that's
Right
this
next to
pond,
the solar.
which is on the other side of these bogs from that site.
So we're not proposing any impacts there, but I bring it up only because that's what was delineated. Let's see. So this pond here, it's on our site visit, that has some vegetation on the backside here, but the staging area is proposed on the existing road, so.
Got it.
Sarah, can you shed any light on the depth of the reservoirs, or the,
I can't.
when they were created?
Yes, in the packet we submitted, we did include kind of the historic aerial timeline. So it kind of shows from 1995 until 2023, kind of the evolution of the construction of these reservoirs. And then the depth,
I know.
if you remember our last conversation, we had included this proposed baseline monitoring report where the depth was included and some additional analysis. Just looking what you're looking for a second. I guess it shows the clarity.
Yeah, I didn't see depth on
Yeah, well,
the water
there's
testing.
there's
a contour maps, though.
I'm sorry?
You have contour maps, which.
We do. I guess the depth that I was thinking of in this report was the tests they were doing for water clarity. And so, the deepest that one of them, site one was almost 14 feet deep. So there's definitely a range there. Has the bathymetry been included on this?
Yeah, we did do bathymetry on all but the square pond that's on the east side, that's underway right now. And at the low end, the depth was about 8 feet, down to that 14 feet at the zebra side.
All right, so based on the aerial photos, I see that these 4 reservoirs were in place in 2021,
Yeah.
correct? Which was before you're going to DEP about.
Right, so about an additional area.
Right.
So then I don't know if they had earth removal permits for these ones that they created prior to 2021.
All right, but what I'm trying to figure out here is how applicable what you're saying is to us with solar going on 4 reservoirs that were created before you appealed.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm asking, so
Okay.
there could be some clarity about that, that would be great. And then, so as far as the water clarity, since it is the sole source aquifer, the drinking water aquifer, was that a one-time clarity test, or are you planning to do ongoing
Yeah,
water quality
The
testing?
proposal is to do a baseline test of a few different aspects and then continue seasonally throughout the life of the project.
So what are the aspects?
It's in the report.
It's in the report, it's a bunch of, actually, the water is very healthy. It's looking at oxidation, clarity, it's at the end.
Like any other
And they're gonna do it every
VOCs,
fall, they're gonna do it 4 times a year.
But like for pollutants or?
No, I don't think for.
So it's-
No, it's
a base.
dissolved oxygen,
Yeah.
pH.
It's not,
There was a note related to any
I know, I
vegetative species identified. It's really just to sort of track throughout the life of the project any changes.
Right, but not the current, actually purity of the water quality, in terms of, water quality testing for drinking water
Well, this is
supply.
not drinking water,
Yeah.
so no.
Well, it's a drinking water supply for the entire region, because it's the sole
These
source
4
aquifer.
ponds.
Yeah, they're connected to the aquifer. They're part of the aquifer that people drink out of, including the people with the private wells next door. So I would think that water quality testing would be important, including for PFAS, which is something that people are concerned about with regard to solar panels and any kind of electrical equipment that might be buried, and your anchors that you're putting into the aquifer, et cetera.
Well, we've asked the question before on PFAS, and we've been told, and it's been demonstrated that there are no PFAS components to any of the floating solar activities.
The panels, I mean, they can you can require certain type of equipment. I mean,
And they have.
Okay,
So these are
all right.
actually, they've proven to us that these are absolutely PFAS-free. They're not doing any of the treatment aftermarket that could put PFAS there. But to your point, like, they're testing for a certain level. It's true, like, whatever's in that
It
water
tests
might be in my
dissolved
well as
oxygen.
well, but, they
But that's
can't
not
test for
water
everything.
quality.
No, that's
No,
correct.
it's
That's
not,
correct.
it's just
Yeah.
testing baseline,
So-
to see
And
what's
then,
aiming.
well, obviously, we think it should be testing water quality, but, I've been doing this a long time, and somebody can test and test and test, and the files get, put in a folder somewhere, so what is, the applicant proposing in terms of monitoring, and are they gonna be paying for someone in the town to review the quarterly reports, and what kind of action will be required? Sometimes there can be stipulated penalties if there are violations, or some kind of plan for if, any of these parameters exceed what's acceptable for drinking water, or, are they saying this is, I'm not sure what the metric is that this is measured against, but,
I believe that is part of our zoning bylaws and would be covered by the planning board. I'm not 100% sure, but that's generally where the rules and regulations regarding
drinking water standards?
reporting of water quality, and that would be the Board of Health, but through the planning board. Because that would be in our zoning bylaws as to what procedures would have to be followed in order to be able to put floating solar.
I've never seen that happen. So I would just urge the Conservation Commission to take any steps that they can to ensure that the water quality continues to remain, adequate, and to have some kind of mitigation measure if there are problems in the future.
I mean, the one thing I'd add is that these are man-made bogs for farming, so I would expect to find herbicide in there.
Mhm.
They use them. That's part of the process. So it's just, the question is, you can't test for 1,000 things, so what would we test for? We're,
So-
all of
so-
us in Carver are subject to the fact that there's herbicide going onto bogs, and yes, it may get in my well. Like, I do think the water there may have impact on my well on Canterbury, but that's just,
But so, and my point is, what is the point of testing for these parameters, temperature and dissolved oxygen? Is there aquatic life in there that requires
Yeah.
these? So did they identify what aquatic life requires these temperature levels and dissolved oxygen?
I'm not a scientist, and I'm not a water quality scientist, but I think they did describe, two of the ponds have actual aquatic life, and the other two are not so much, but these are just looking at the overall, I think, these are the tests of the ponds before the solar goes in, and then they continue to test after to see if we have a change. And any of those things, I'm not an expert on those.
Yeah, so I'm just saying, from a water quality perspective, what is the point of testing for this if it's not tied to the health of an aquatic organism or human health or anything? It's just like, okay, the water's clear and cold.
Well, I mean,
So
I think
what?
it's just for the plants and the wildlife. I mean, I don't know, Sarah, can you speak to that? Or do you have someone
That's
here?
exactly right.
For the wildlife and the plants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So does that relate to protecting the interests of the Wetlands Protection Act and
Well,
the?
I mean, the problem is that these ponds are not considered jurisdictional under the act. And we're here because there are other resources on the site that are jurisdictional. So it's a little bit of a gray area, honestly, from DEP's perspective. So there's not a hard clear list of requirements. There are policies, there are frequently asked questions, and, we're really here to present something to the commission that we think is appropriate for something that's not jurisdictional, but also want to understand that the health of the water body is maintained, even, as it is today, after the project is, if it's approved and installed, after and during the life of that. And frequent reporting, to anyone who would like a report is fine. It's just a proposal as a starting point to have this discussion. So that's kind of where we are with it. And we're also, just so everyone knows, we're talking about this with the planning board. That conversation is ongoing. This package is being peer reviewed right now by the town's peer review engineer, so we're expecting perhaps some comments on that and maybe suggestions from that end as well. Just, it's still in process, so.
And I had assumed, but correct me if I'm wrong, that you would get a copy of those quarterly reports.
I think that's something that we should include in the order of conditions, that those are, sent to us, just because that then requires those to be sent to me. I
Then
mean,
we can-
I would hope that they would, but,
That was the intent, yeah. You, the health agent, town planner,
Yes,
really
and-
anyone
and-
that
Anyone wants
is
it.
kind of
Yeah.
keeping an eye on how these things are going.
Right.
And again, just from an enforcement perspective, it's completely useless to have files sent in if, you're gonna have to take time out of your day to say, oh no, the water's, 20 degrees hotter than it's supposed to do. B, what are you going to do unless
Well,
there's,
to be clear, like, this is something that the applicant has offered to do with, it's not something that we're required them to do.
Right.
It's not something that's required for them to do under the Protection Act. So essentially, what they're trying to do is set a baseline for how things are. If I receive some kind of report that says that, the dissolved oxygen is very low and the temperature is extremely high and there's green algae all inside, there's not really anything for me to do in that case, because, again, these are non-jurisdictional resource areas.
so that goes directly to my point of this is pretty much meaningless for them to say this in here, and I think it's
That's your
frankly
opinion,
misleading for them to say, oh, we're testing the water quality when, first of all, you're not testing for drinking water parameters, and if they violate the water quality standards, nothing's gonna happen because there's no one to look at it. I mean, you can just look at what happened tonight with the emergency order in 2001. So I think these things need to be looked at carefully, and I think you need to look at 20 years from now, if the water under there is boiling or whatever, it's contaminated, what is the town's remedy? And, I've been dealing with solar companies for a long time. New Leaf, I'm sure will sell this as soon as it gets built, and it'll be a venture capital bond fund from New York City or California or whatever, and they'll be like, well, we didn't agree to that, and if you don't have anything enforceable in the order of conditions, then this is window dressing. Thank you.
Thank you.
I do want to address just a couple of things that you said, Ms. Sheehan.
All right, do you want me to please?
No, you can go, you can sit down. I think that your statement that no one will be looking at it is probably incorrect. I think people will be looking at it, but as being non-jurisdictional, as Emil said, there's not much we can do about it. We can tell people about it, but it's non-jurisdictional. And the second thing is that I don't think that the report is totally a waste of time. This is relatively new technology, and the data that's learned from putting these panels onto a reservoir and any changes in water temperature or oxygen levels is going to be helpful in the future for determining what needs to be changed to make things better, if in fact that is the case. So,
But they're not gonna change this project. I mean, if the water starts boiling and it's, the dissolved oxygen is off the charts and whatever's in there, you're stuck with these for 20 years, right? Because you have no jurisdiction over it, and you're not gonna put enforceable conditions on an order of conditions, so it's an academic exercise. And like I said, my view is it's window dressing. Unless you're gonna do something enforceable in an order of conditions, and even if you don't have authority, if they're coming in here offering to do this, and they want their permit, you can ask them to agree to it.
I think that's what we're doing.
Well, what are you asking them to agree to? Send your quarterly reports that you can look at, but nothing happens? If there's a violation, because you have a
It's not a
part-time
violation if it's
agent?
non-jurisdictional.
Yeah, so what's the point?
Okay, all right, I understand.
Yeah, hi, Savory.
Rebecca, you want to come up, please?
Well, it's just in what Meg said, it's just a quick comment about the PFAS and the panels. I think we should get that in writing, that they're not using PFAS
I think we
in the
have that.
coatings.
We have it in writing.
We have it in writing.
So
they're
they
fine.
actually know the company they're getting them from, and there's absolutely zero coatings, and you have it in writing.
In writing.
And the
Yeah.
only other thing was that it's better to have preventative action on this eutrophication situation, like Meg said, because there's eutrophication all over this town in high algae blooms. I think it's really important. And also PFAS, we're dealing with PFAS in a huge way. Many, many people cannot drink their water because of PFAS. So, you know, that was a permitting issue on one of the boards before you guys got on here, but we're all dealing with it now. So preventative measures mean a whole lot, and jurisdictional or not.
There's certainly a much greater awareness of PFAS now than there has been in the past.
Well-
And, you know, Carver's not alone in having PFAS everywhere.
I just wonder how all these solar panels that are already in place and how they are maintained and managed, and you see broken panels everywhere and they're just sitting out there, and you know, what's happening? Are they PFAS? Do they have nanoparticles seeping into the ground, into our water? I mean, it's a real major issue and problem that none of us are really aware of until it's too late.
Right.
Do you
So-
know of any broken panels in Carver? I've not seen them on
Oh, well,
my travels.
you know, yes, I do.
I would like to know that if that.
Okay, well, then you should go out and inspect, because that's one
I
thing, is
do.
who's monitoring these panels? Is anybody in the town monitoring any of these huge solar arrays? Going out and actually seeing what's going on? We had really high winds recently. Has anybody checked?
I think if you look at the zoning bylaws of the town under solar, you'll see that there are periods of time where the solar panel owners have to inspect and make reports to the town. So that would be under zoning.
Okay,
All
so
right.
basically nobody really knows.
No, I believe it's there. I was part of the solar panel study committee 5 years ago that put that zoning plan together, and part of what we did was to make sure that broken panels were replaced on a timely basis.
I
And-
have seen them, by the way.
Okay.
No, I would like to know where.
Well, I'm not gonna say where.
Just as a business thing, I need you both to
Oh,
sign
okay.
the sign-in sheet. All right, does anybody else have anything to say at this time? No? All right. You wanna, what is our next step here? What do you,
Yeah, so I'm guessing you guys aren't requesting any more continuances, you just like to move forward with this?
If the commission's ready, we're
Yeah,
ready.
so I mean, it's a request for amended order of conditions.
Okay.
Essentially to allow for the floating solar on the 4 bogs. So, you know, I think you guys should consider, you know, what kind of special conditions, if any, you would, you know, like to add for that amended order of conditions, and then, you know, it would be a vote to
Thank you.
approve your request for an amended order of conditions.
okay. Does anybody else have any questions before we close the hearing?
I do not know.
Anyway, all right, I'll accept a motion to close the hearing on 19C Ward Street, DEP file SE 126589.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right. It's been moved and seconded to close the hearing on 19C Ward Street. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, it's approved unanimously. And I will now, I'll accept a motion to approve the amended order of conditions for the same project.
I think it was in part amended because you added another reservoir. Isn't that correct? You added a fourth one?
All 4 of these are part of the amended order.
Okay,
Yes. Essentially, the initial project
Was
was
3,
the,
and then-
no, was the ground mounted
Okay.
solar, which was permitted, you know, 3 years ago or so, I think.
Right.
So this is to, you know, amend the order for floating solar.
All right, do we want to, before I take the motion, do we want to talk about conditions?
I think we should, yeah. I
Okay.
mean, I don't know, what do we have in there already? I mean, it's been a while, so I mean, what do we got going on here?
So the original order was issued in 2020. So you want me to read all of them?
No, but basically, just what are we approving? You know, what are we,
Um,
a synopsis, so I can.
So again, you're approving the addition of floating solar panels on the 4 bog reservoirs that are, man-made, non-jurisdictional reservoirs. So that's the project that you're approving. Additionally to, the installation of the, original project, which was 2,495.61 kilowatt solar array, as shown on the approved plan. There was a condition in there originally about wetland mitigation area.
So originally there is on land solar,
Mhm.
right?
The first one, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we are now
Or floating solar.
The 4 reservoirs.
the 4 reservoirs.
Proposed
Right.
solar.
Yeah,
So-
so I
Some
mean,
of which is
this
within the
has
buffer zone.
generally pretty, standard conditions. It's requiring erosion control, it's requiring equipment to be, kept and maintained outside of the buffer zones. It's requiring, certificate of compliance and as-built at the end of the project. So I think what we're talking about right now is what, if any, special conditions would you guys like to put on this part of the project? And, I think what we've discussed so far, I think the big one being that, no PFAS coating or
Right.
PFAS will be used in the floating solar technology itself. I think that's,
Okay.
a fair request for this order of conditions. Because they're not testing for that, it's important that it not be, added to the system. That's something that they've already, stated that they're happy to do. So I think requiring that in the order is, just,
Okay.
makes sense. And the other thing would just be that we're sent a copy of these reports, monitoring reports, whenever those are done. Sent
Do we have a schedule for the reports?
In the baseline, we had proposed seasonal, so spring, summer, fall.
Okay,
But,
all right.
fairly.
I think that's, does anyone have any
No, I think.
issue with that, spring, summer, fall?
It's
All right.
just dissolved oxygen and temperature, right? for that.
Clarity.
Was that?
Yes, and water clarity.
And water clarity, right?
Yes, and really checking to see if there's any kind of algae growth and change of vegetative species and that sort of thing. So it would be similar to this report, just updated information.
So basically
This
just
would be the template.
organics,
Yeah.
basically, is
Yeah.
what it is.
All right,
I
so
think
we can put language into that effect in the conditions.
Yep, and I'd be happy to.
All right, so
draft
we
that.
have 2 new conditions, one about no PFAS and one about the water quality
Yep, no
reports
PFAS in
being,
the,
given
in the
seasonally.
Panels themselves or in the, or any coatings, right?
right, or any component of the whole system.
One thing I know Sarah mentioned is for Reservoir 2, they have to decide where they're gonna stage, and one staging area is complete sand, which isn't gonna impact anything, the other does have DPW, so I think we'd have a preference, but I don't know what their technical requirements are. But for me, I'd have a preference that it could be staged on the part that's not gonna be near the actual wetland bogs. That's,
And I believe that's how it's shown in the
I
plan.
think so.
So if you reference the plan that was submitted, that becomes part of the
Okay,
record.
yeah. There just may be factors that may make you change it, I guess.
It would,
But-
yeah, it would be hard to access that side of the pond, I think.
I think so,
because
too.
the road is right
It makes
there,
sense to me.
But yes, I hear your point.
Okay.
All right, so that being said, I will.
Thank you, Emil, for explaining that.
I will entertain a motion to approve the request for an amended order of conditions for 19C Ward Street with the conditions included that were just mentioned regarding PFAS and water quality for DEP file SC126-589.
So moved.
Second?
Second. Whatever.
Carl won.
Yeah, he-
I heard it first. All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve the request for an amended order of conditions. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that's approved 5-0. All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
And should things change with planning that impacts anything?
Excuse me?
If things change with planning
We'll be back.
that impacts anything, please let us know. All right, thank you. All right, next up is our second continued public hearing. 0, 15, 16, 17, 19, 21, 25, and 27 Fuller Street. This is an ANRAD, an abbreviated Notice of Resource Area Delineation. This is AEP file SE 126686. This is a continued public hearing, so I don't have to read everything here.
Would you like
So-
an easel, sir?
I actually have
Oh,
one.
you have one?
Oh,
okay.
there's one in the back there.
I was gonna get you one in the back. I'll get it, I'll get it. You're ready to go.
Oh, he's got one?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's like a tent.
This one was 10.
It's like a homemade one.
Nunchucks.
Did you get that from MacGyver?
That's what I said when I first saw this thing. Little one outdoor after all these years.
Maybe bigger with that one.
No. It's like Invasion of the Body Snatcher. Or the War of the Worlds.
Brought my thing for
How old are you?
Not the original.
I can still go get the
You
wood,
know,
I'll get
You
the
wanna
wood
go,
one
we'll
if
get
you
the wooden
want.
ones.
Yeah. You know, I took it out in the office to make sure it was gonna go together. And it's like, oh yeah, it worked great.
Just a flick of the wrist.
Yeah. I'll make a fool out of me on camera in front of everybody. It's all right, we all need a little levity. Here we go.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot.
All right. Yeah, I'm gonna hand you all out something. I sent this to Emil early today. You got a paper copy?
That's what he said. Oh, and he said. Thank you.
You? You, sir? You some more?
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Do you need one for the file? You all set? Because you're kind of a big deal.
Who told you?
Okay, so I was not at the last ANRAD hearing. I told Emil, Ed Jacobs, my office, kind of got me up to speed. I guess there was a question about the culvert under the road there connecting the two cranberry bogs. So what we have done is, and by the way, my name is Pat Carver from P&P Consulting, for the record. So what we have done is, what I handed you was some historical research on the site. We used primarily TopoView, USGS. So the first map you're looking at, that's the current quad with the aerial photo laid on, so you can see the area, the cranberry bogs, the reservoir ponds have been created. And as you flip through, I have the 2024 USGS quad without the aerial. So again, it shows the area as the cranberry bogs and the local bog ponds. I attach a copy of the Mass Mapper. You see how they have it all labeled as the cranberry bogs with the open water features, which are the reservoir ponds. And then we have the 1967, which, believe it or not, that's actually the USGS quad that's on the Mass Mapper, is from 1967. So that pretty well outlines the bog canals, the pond across the street, and also a pond further to the northwest of our site. And we do see on this map, we do see a thread of a stream to the south of the pond, on the south side of Fuller Street. We go back to the 1941 USGS map, and now we can see those reservoir ponds again. They actually have some elevations put on. We can see the one to the south is at 113. The one to the north of our site's at 104, so we get the general feel for the topo that things are flowing in. And again, we can see that thread of that southerly pond. We can see that thread coming in from the wetland to the south into that southerly pond. We go back to the 1937 map, and we lose the color, but you can still see the features are still there. The pond at 113, the pond at 104 to the northwest. Our bogs are a little less defined. There's a hill in the middle of what is now some of the cranberry bogs. So we get the feeling of how this whole area has changed. The next page you'll see is actually from historical aerials because they had a gap filler in 1933. So sometime between 1933 and 1937 is when these cranberry bogs were developed. As we can see the 1933 map, there was just a thread of a blue line crossing Fuller Street. There's no cranberry bogs anywhere. The actual USGS map from 1918, again, shows that area pretty clearly. It shows actually where the culvert is, the thread of the stream starting just south of that and then traveling to the northwest and eventually crossing what is now, I forget what the name of that road is to the north, but basically heading up towards Route 44. So it's kind of the history of the area. We know it's been severely altered with the construction of cranberry bogs and bog reservoirs. Unfortunately, with the ground conditions and the weather conditions where they've been doing site investigation at this point to go out there, I did talk to Brad from ERC. We just couldn't do the on-site investigation and try to track this thing down and, you know, see if there's any hydraulic connections. I believe you said to the north you were mostly concerned if we could trace a connection through the bogs to the north, to the wetland area. So we've not been able to do that. And Brad also talked about, you know, possibly trying to track that connection to the south to see what that actually is. If it's, you know, a remnant of an original stream or what's going on out there. The only thing I can tell you at this point, and I think me and you discussed this in the emails, we know that culvert is a connection, it's a bog, currently a bog canal connecting two bogs, one on the south, one to the north. That's what it is now. It's got a flume on the south side, the sluice way that they can control the flow of the water through it. So that's really unfortunate at this point. That's all I can tell you about that culvert crossing. You know, I told Emil I totally understand his take on it, that culvert could be a remnant of the original stream, but that's up to us to kind of prove. Or, you know, how the commission feels about it.
I'm just reading from the minutes of the last meeting because I wasn't here. I just want to catch up a little bit. I can't vote on this because I wasn't here at the beginning.
So we did have some abutters come, and they were worried about the water flow going under the street with that culvert that, you know, Emil.
Okay.
So that was in part of what happened when you weren't here.
Yeah, I mean, you know, again, at this point, we're only talking about the ANRAD, and I know all these
Yeah,
other
I
questions
understand
come
that.
up.
Yep.
So,
I understand that.
yeah, and that's understandable. It happens. Everybody wants to know, well, what's gonna happen now?
Right. You know, to their wells and all that. so,
Yeah.
All right. Does anybody have any further questions on this matter?
Well, is there a time when you will be able to test the
So,
hydric soil or?
if you are concerned about the culvert and the nature of it, we can do that as the weather conditions improve in the spring. I've talked to Brad about that, you know, if the commission would like that further investigated, that's perfectly fine. Because you guys have two bites at this apple. The ANRAD will present to you tonight, you know, you can actually approve it for the resource areas that are shown on the plan, which are the limits of the bogs. We still have to file notices of intent on every lot we create out there, but we can't move forward with the A&R plan without the ANRAD because of the way the town regulations are written. So if it's agreeable to me and the members of the board, I'd like to request that we approve the ANRAD for the resources as shown for the related to the cranberry bogs, with the requirement or condition that we address the culvert through the NOI process. And that's primarily gonna affect the lots to the left or to the east. The lots to the west they're pretty well out of play with the 200-foot riparian zone with that culvert. But the lots to the east would certainly be impacted. And like I said, we would certainly address that through the NOI process.
Well, I would look to your
Yeah, I
recommendation.
mean, my feeling on this, you know, is that there is a connection, and, you know, I think if you could look back at the historical aerials, you know, there was a stream there.
Yep.
There's no question about it. So, you know, my feeling is I would prefer, if we're gonna approve an ANRAD on this, that we approve it as, you know, modified, and we, you know, state that there is a stream in that location. You know, rather than approving it as is and leaving the stream completely unaddressed, I think, you know, it would make sense to have, that connection shown as a stream. Again, it's because of how altered this area has been, it's very difficult to tell whether the culvert is running this way and then it goes around that way and then there's a connection to these wetlands that are up here, or whether it wraps around, the south side and goes up. And, just based on, the elevations of those two ponds, when you look back at that 113 pond on the south side of Fuller Street, and then the pond, it's pretty close, and it's, a whole, 9 feet difference in elevation. So I think that it's very likely there's a connection there. And I just don't feel comfortable approving an ANRAD when, this is our opportunity as a commission to look at, the resource areas on the site. And, I did, recommend to your colleague at the last meeting that you get a wetland scientist out there. Obviously, with the conditions and everything, we weren't able to do that. But I was actually out there, this morning, and I, walked from this side where there's a big pipe that goes underneath the berm from that pond on the south side. There's water flowing through that, and there's water flowing through the canal, and it's clearly flowing very well through that pipe, even with the frozen conditions. So my feeling is there's a lot of hydrology there, and so I think I wouldn't really feel comfortable confirming the boundaries when, we haven't really researched, whether or not there is a stream there. So that's my personal opinion. I just feel like, if there is an approval for this, it should be, a modified, approval to show that there is a stream on the site.
Is there any indication where the outflow is?
See, that's kind of the
north side of the bog?
I haven't gone walking around all of these bogs to try and determine that, and I'm not a professional wetland scientist to be able to make that like a hard statement on that. But no, I haven't really looked into that. But again, that's kind of the burden on the applicant.
Yeah, and it's a tough site because, what we're dealing with, like I said, clearly there was some kind of a stream there originally, and, that's clear by the evidence. But now what we're dealing with is man-made canals on either side of the road, with the exception of the culvert. The culvert was clearly there, again, we can trace that back. So, with the understanding, I guess, that, in the Rivers Act, that the man-made canals don't have a riparian zone, but that culvert itself, being the original thread, would. It would end essentially where it meets the canals on either side of Fuller Street, would be the end of the riparian zone, but it would extend out left and right, or in a circle, however it looks when we put that on there. So, again, I can't, I can't argue the point, I guess, because again, we don't have enough field data, I guess, and again, like Emil, if there is a connection to the north, then as you say, yes, it's going through the canals and it's affected by the cranberry bogs, but if there is an outlet to the north, like I say, it's a long way roundabout hydraulic connection. Even Brad agreed with that if we see that, then we have to call it is what it is. So, I guess that would be the one thing, clarity tonight would be, if we agree on at least that point that, the culvert is the remnant of the stream, and that's what would be subject to the riparian zone. I mean, I think we understand that was a distinct possibility. And, again, we could gather more information.
Yeah, I mean, I respect that. It's just like it's difficult for us when this is our opportunity to really confirm those boundaries, to say, just this is the stream and then it stops there. Does it go to the north? Does it run around to the south? It could affect these lots. Obviously, when you do come forward with whatever project you have planned, I think it's something that we kind of need to figure out. And if you guys are going to be doing that investigation anyways, it makes sense for us to, you know, have that confirmation and that information for this hearing, which is, you know, that's just my opinion, but it should be looked into before we issue the NRAD, it's my opinion.
I agree with you.
Yep.
I mean, so if you were to establish a connection, like, okay, so say, we say now the culvert, you have to be 200 feet away from the culvert, that's riparian zone, right? Is that correct?
Yep.
Now, what's the extension of that? Is that what you gotta find out?
Exactly.
You just look at the flow of the water, is that how it works, or how would it work?
To be honest, I don't 100% know how because it's in these active cranberry bogs. Like in Carver, we have a lot of cranberry bogs. A lot of them were built directly around streams because, you know, that's the best place to get water. So, you know, we have channels that have, you know, streams that run straight through the center of cranberry bogs, and just because it's a cranberry bog canal doesn't make it not, you know, a stream. And those we treat like any other river here in Carver. You know, I think, you know, the state act, you know, may not have that, you know, exact like wording in there, but that's kind of how it's, you know, been, these areas have been treated in Carver because it's just such a unique area where there's been so much manufactured wetlands and engineered systems like this. So it's, I mean, if we're looking at the 1967 USGS quad, it's like it's almost like a maze of blue lines running around all the edges of these wetlands.
Yep.
And I think, in my opinion, there's got to be a connection back to those bogs to the rear and that wetland to the north. And I think a lot of wetlands, when you have large like wooded swamps, like there's a body of water in there. It may not be very you know, defined, but there's always like kind of a through flow in these large wooded swamps where water is kind of moving through, and that's typically considered perennial streams.
Well, it's clear in the 1918 map, the last map here, where the stream was.
Yep.
Yep.
So,
Yeah,
and that's
like-
probably where the natural flow is gonna be today, only it's gonna make its way sort of circuitously over there.
Yeah, and like I said, we were able to trace that general culvert connection all the way back. It was actually pretty cool in the 1916 military map. It was actually a pretty cool little map.
Right. So it just looks like the stream flows along the western edge of the bog that exists now. I mean, that's what it looks like from the
Yeah, right along the
1980s.
road.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and it just flowed over to that other body of water over there, the 101, whatever the other one was there, 104 elevation, or, no, that's, yeah, whatever that is. Well, anyway, so what do we do? Do you continue this? Is
I
that
mean,
what
the way I look at it is you
Yeah.
have a couple options. You could ask them to do that research and continue it again, and ask them to come back and, you know, have that looked at, which I would recommend. You know, these ANRADs, you can either issue them as, you know, approved as, you know, as accurate, the boundaries shown on the plan, or you can approve them as modified, and you know, that way the Conservation Commission would, you know, state that, you know, these areas are correct, and then there's also, you know, a perennial stream on the site. I don't really know, like, it's not really, because we don't have a plan that shows it, it's not really the best way to do things, because then you're just kind of saying, you know, that we think there's a stream there, but you're not really locating it. And then you could, you know, just deny this because you don't agree with, you know, the wetland boundaries, but I don't think that's really the way to go either, because, you know, it's, you know, everything else, for the most part, it seems like we're in agreement on. It's just the stream that, you know, again, there hasn't been that in-depth look at it, and so that's why I recommend, you know, having that done before we issue any order of research. delineation to the.
Maybe you could explain to some people in the audience, because they don't know what an ANRAD is, probably. I mean, they're here for this thing, it may be a good idea to explain to them what that means.
Sure, so the abbreviated Notice of Resource Area Delineation is what ANRAD stands for, and it's essentially the request for the commission to confirm the wetland boundaries on the site. So again, there's no project proposed here, but there is, a request for the commission to look at the boundaries which are shown. Essentially, they're showing a bunch of cranberry bogs and a bog pond here, which is a non-jurisdictional pond. So they're showing all of these buffer zones around that. That's what these blue, the blue line is the 150 foot, the green line is 100 foot, and the red line is this 65 foot. So essentially, there's a culvert that runs across here, and that's the area that we've been concerned with, and so that's the request that we're looking at right now. We're not looking at the lots or any proposed construction or anything. It's just the confirmation of the resource areas.
But we're lacking the data on what may be a resource area.
Exactly.
So that's.
A pretty important resource area.
Yeah, it's been there for a long time.
Can I make a comment on the water flow?
Sure.
Pat Heeman, I've been living down there 28 years. When we moved in, this bog was initially here. There was a hill here, came all the way out into the middle section. There was another bog that was this way, up to these property lines. They took this hill out, they took the front hill out right here, which all that did was widen this area on the front. When we looked at this, for all the years I've been walking this was the new piece. I think your original wetlands are right back here in the low section. When your stream crossed here, the majority of your water, even into the summer, you watch when the water would flow, come through here to this corner and would split between that one, or if he diverted, was to this one. There used to be a culvert through I'm calling it a culvert, but the connector right here, and the majority of your water always came through this bog and went to this back corner. They took that flume out since they bought the bog. So now they've forced it to go back through this way. And now they're digging a new one in this area. Another one, is that a water hole in this corner?
What's that?
Where they're digging over in this corner, where that piece of the bog used to exist.
No, last I knew, they were out there, they were working on the edge of that bog. I don't know what else they've done.
Well,
I haven't been
there's
out
a
there.
piece right there that used to be a bog, where the water was diverted through there when Greg Arnold owned it. Now they've dug all that out. I haven't been in there since, but they've piled all along the back property. And where the wet area is in this corner, where the existing was, now they're pushing along the tree line right here. And there's a whole new pile since I left. I've just come back from Maine today, but over the last couple of days, they're pushing into that corner as well. So that's concerning me. But to me, I think the water flow initially came through and hugged the left side of the property, because that's where the greatest flow always was, out of this one into this one to the back corner.
Thank you.
It never made it this way, because I think the elevation change was too much. Even when Charlie Johnson owned the back, he had to pump from the wetland up to fill that water hole.
Could you sign in, please?
Yep.
Thank you.
I think what you're saying, it kind of matches the flow that we're looking at right here.
Yeah. Yep, it hugged that side of the property, because even in the driest part of the year, you'd see the trickle coming through those two bogs on the left, every single
Well,
time.
historically, I think what you're saying is correct.
So they have a 1918 map right here.
Yeah.
David, can I just give you a resource that you might be able to find, that where these rivers and streams and stuff flow? There's a antique map hanging at the Plymouth Library, and let me show you. There's a lot of maps. And it shows all the details prior to all the manipulation of the water. In all these, I have photos of it all, happen to have it on my phone, so.
And this is Carver?
This is
or-
Plymouth Library, and yeah, this is, see, it says Carver.
Sure.
So you can actually go in and see, yeah,
What year is that from, do you know, Rebecca?
it's ancient, I don't know. Let me see, I can probably tell you. But it's a great resource if you know, because I took a class recently of some scientists in Pennsylvania who are dealing with the same channels and trying to, you know, reconstruct the original bodies of water because of mill dams. So,
Yeah, that'd be interesting. to
Yeah, you
see
should
if
just-
that
you
is,
should check this out.
Available somewhere.
well, it's on, this is a map that's hanging on the wall.
Yeah, I've seen some.
And they actually have a magnifying glass, you can borrow it. And you can look.
Thank you.
It's a good resource.
Thank you.
One second. My feeling is that, you know, where the water went in the past is sort of irrelevant. We need to know where it is now, where it's going now. So what I would like to see is I would like to see almost an aerial photo with the delineation superimposed on it, but also indications of any place where water flows underneath the bog roads and the direction of flow, so that we can figure out, because just by looking on my phone, it looks as though in almost the top of the drawing where that V is, that upside down V, there is a smaller reservoir or holding place before it goes into what seems to be a very robust wetlands. And it seems to me that that's where there's some erosion in a bog road that seems to be water cutting through, making its own path.
Yeah, I think it would be pretty hard to say without going out there, without the snow covering the ground.
No, I understand
But
that.
they, like, was spoken by our neighbor to his property, they are, out there doing work actively on these bogs, and, there could be, some alteration even going on right now to the flow and, piling up sand in areas that could be blocking off existing channels, so something that I have to look into a little bit more in terms of what they're actually doing out there. But
Right, and to this gentleman's point, if a connector was blocked off, another one had to be built somewhere, otherwise that bog would be underwater.
It
So,
was taken out completely.
Yeah.
Took the pipe right out.
yeah, so,
And it was just like-
that's what I think that, we should be following the water path, almost doing the orange test, where you throw oranges in the water and see where they flow.
I don't know if that's
Rubber
the
ducks.
method, but I
We could do
think
that too, we could have a rubber duck race.
The ball
Yeah.
test.
a professional wetland scientist should be looking at this site, and
Yeah, like I said, we're working with Brad Holmes on this.
Okay, well, that's
Yeah.
good.
so that I think it really would be helpful to have his,
I would think that we should do that before
Yeah.
doing the end, right?
yeah, that's my feeling as well.
Okay,
I agree.
all right.
Yes,
I was gonna get to you. I almost forgot you. I almost did. You're unforgettable. Come up, please.
Oh, okay, sure. So, we've been dealing with this at a number of bog sites where there has been a lot of alteration. So 310 CMR 10.58 is very specific about how you identify a riverfront and a river. So there shouldn't be any question about the method that they use to identify the riverfront area, the 200-foot setback, and that should be delineated on the map throughout the site.
Well, I think the question is that where does the water flow? Which of
Well,
those?
there's methods
I know, and
that
that's,
they have to use,
that's-
so.
It's not winter, that's what we're saying.
Excuse me?
to do.
That's
Not
what we're-
winter, that's why
that's what we're
Well,
asking them
we're
to
asking
do.
them to do it.
Okay, so they'll do that, and they'll
Yes.
determine the 200-foot riverfront area,
Yes,
and then they have to show that there's no alternative to the project that they want to do They have
So
to
this is the ANRAD, there's no project that's being proposed.
No, I understand
Right,
that,
but-
but that's why it's
but yes.
important to have the riverfront area delineated
And that's
throughout
what,
the
that's
site.
why we're not voting on it tonight.
And that's why I'm urging you to do that, and I'm also urging you to, look at the part of the regulations that say that basically canals, these canals are not exempt from the Wetlands Protection Act. Human-made canals are not exempt. It's right there in 10.58. It talks about human-made canals such as the Cape Cod Canal, Lowell, and Holyoke. Those are exempt, but this is not. And then what this gentleman described sounds like a long history of violations of the Wetlands Protection Act by alterations and filling. Have there been any other order of conditions issued for this?
Not that I'm aware of. I'm not aware of anything that's happened on that side of Fuller Street. In my term here, it's been 10 years. I can't go back any further than that, that I'm aware of. I mean, I suppose we could look into it.
Well, what he described was violations, alterations, fills.
What we described happened in 1933.
No, ongoing. He just said they took down hills.
Oh, this gentleman over here.
Yeah.
It's an agricultural farm.
That doesn't mean it's exempt from the Wetlands Protection Act.
Yeah. It is.
No, it isn't.
So, I'm gonna leave this off with you guys, we'll do the
Okay.
further investigation.
Yeah,
We'll
we'd
work
like
with
to,
Emil on it.
we'd like to find out where the
Yep.
river flows.
Yeah, we'll trace it through.
Okay.
We'll work with Brad, we'll use all the methods, including stream stats, to see if it does qualify as a stream.
Okay,
And we'll come back when we have the information.
great, good.
And we'll just, we'll go at it from that direction.
Do you have a timeline of how long you think that might take you? know it's-
I don't,
been
you know,
winter.
it's,
Okay.
I know next week's supposed to be kinda nice, supposed to be in the 40s, so maybe we'll get
Yeah.
some melt and some thaw, and we can, we're working on it, but we'll keep Emil posted.
Okay,
Find, if we need to continue again, we'll just let him know through email.
all right.
And like I said, we'll come back when we have all the information that we need.
All right, so at this point, we won't put a date, we'll just continue it to,
Yeah, I think best thing would be maybe to just say 2 meetings from now, come back, 'cause
so that would
next
be
one's,
March 19th.
Right,
Yeah, I think that's good.
All right.
2 weeks definitely would be enough time.
yeah. So
Okay.
let's say March 19th, and if you need to continue again, you can do that.
All right, this sounds good, fair enough.
All right,
All right.
great.
All right, great, thank you.
Thank you.
So we have to vote on that?
Yeah.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
He kind of cut me off, but.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, he did.
No.
So, agriculture does not have a wholesale exemption from the Wetlands Protection Act. There are very, very specific requirements that have to be met. If you're taking down an upland hill with trees on it, that land is not in agricultural use, it's a forested hill. You are not exempt from the Wetlands Protection Act if that work is in the buffer zone or is in a BBW. I don't know what he did on here, but this is the same argument that Fruit de Or is using and saying that they're exempt from the Wetlands Protection Act. These projects are not exempt, and I hope that I can only urge you to conduct a thorough investigation of the alterations of this site, because I've looked at it on Google Earth, and the surrounding areas, and Mr. Johnson across the street. They have dredged, filled, and altered the wetlands, streams throughout this whole area on both sides of Fuller Street. And it's a complete outrage, in my view, and I'm a lawyer, and I know what I'm talking about, and this is not exempt agriculture. And I hope that the Conservation Commission will take a serious look at these and not reward people who have been cheating and violating the Wetlands Protection Act for decades, and then come in and wanna have a subdivision and say, oh, it's just a culvert and it's not a river.
All right,
Thank
well,
you.
what we've done, what we're doing is asking them to come back and tell us where the river flows. And
And maybe they can explain all their violations and explain how
Well-
everything and all the sand mining that they did out there and the digging, why it was exempt from the Wetlands Protection Act.
in looking at this packet with all of the historic maps and photos, that hill that you speak of was there in 1967. It was not in 2005, so it's been over 20 years.
The
So-
Wetlands Protection Act
I
was passed in
I
the
understand that.
1960s. Anything that happened since the 1960s is a violation.
I understand that,
And
but,
there's no statute of limitations. It's an ongoing violation. Sorry, I don't mean to get upset, but there's just so much of it going on. It's really, really sad to see for the resources and for the people and for the water and the wildlife.
All right.
Yeah.
Granted, okay, so.
Thank you.
All right, I will entertain a motion to continue the hearing one more time till Wednesday, March 19th.
So moved. Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to continue the hearing till March 19th. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I can't vote. Well, I suppose I can vote to continue it. Any opposed? Hearing none, approved unanimously. Okay, that takes care of the continued hearings. Now we have one new hearing this evening, 78 North Main Street, NOI DEP file SC 12668X. We don't have a number yet.
Not that I'm aware of unless.
I think I can vote to continue it.
Yeah, you can.
I did.
That's my understanding.
I said unanimous.
You said unanimous after, you said you couldn't vote on it, so I just
And
wanted
then I
to
said,
clarify.
but then I, under my breath, I said to myself, I'm good.
Now,
Perfect.
is
I just
under your
wanted to
breath,
make
is
sure
that part of the record?
Yes.
I don't know if it works. Careful.
Thank you for clarifying.
Is it operational?
It looks operational. Yeah, that's good.
That's more solid than the last.
The other
guy.
one.
Yeah, I would stand closer to that one than the other one.
Good, that works. Okay.
All right, I have to read this because it's a new hearing. Notice is hereby given in accordance with the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, MGL, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Carver Wetlands Protection Bylaw that a public hearing will be held at 7:00 PM on Wednesday, February 19th in Meeting Room 4. 4, right? At the
Yes.
Carver Town Hall to hear the notice of intent submitted by Eric J. Parkins /EJP Trust for the construction of a 1,344 square foot addition to an existing building within the buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland. This project is located at 78 North Main Street, Carver, Massachusetts. Assessors Map 18, Lot 12-5. All interested parties are invited to attend. Good evening.
Good evening. So my name is Rob Carlazone. I'm from Grady Consulting. This is the site plan for 78 North Main Street. It's basically a proposed addition. Just a little background, this is located on the west side of North Main Street, called North Carver. There is a wetland that kind of runs along the rear of the property. It's shown in blue on the plan. There's an existing commercial building on the site. It's shown just sort of outlined with the white on this plan here. There's an existing parking lot that's kind of shaded in light gray. You can see on the plan. That's existing. The current building, there's a auto body shop, Crossroads Collision, and there's also a print shop, Norwood Printing and Graphics. Basically, our client owns the print shop and would like to put an addition on the building. And on this plan, it's shown in sort of a light brown color. It's a rectangle. The addition is 1,344 square feet in area. It is, the addition is located within the buffer zone to the wetland. This is kind of the only feasible place to expand the building, is where we have the addition shown. The closest corner of the addition to the wetlands, we have it shown as 50.4 feet. We have a proposed silt sock, which is shown in red, kind of wrapped around, I guess on the right side, kind of wrapped around the parking lot. We do have a strip on the left side, just for erosion control. We do have, the plan is to keep the existing parking lot intact and just cut out the area that they will be putting the addition. The entire addition is going to be located within already paved asphalt area. So we're not increasing impervious area on the site. No changes in drainage patterns. We do have proposed parking lot striping, which is actually more of a planning board requirement, but it's on the plan here, just for reference. And I think that's about it on that. So,
All right, thank
if you
you.
have any questions?
Yeah, Emil, Ann, Dave, and I were,
Ann.
Ann.
Oh, and.
Ann.
Oh, I thought you said and.
And Ann.
Emil, Ann, Dave, and I.
That's funny.
Went on a site visit this morning and saw that. And it's a paved area, it's already, you know, an impervious area. And it has been for a long, long time. That's a relatively old building that's behind it. So I really don't see any potential changes in the makeup of what it is now. It's, you know, the parking lot is grandfathered in, so anything that goes on top of the parking lot that doesn't change the dynamics, I don't see much of an issue with. Does anybody, neither of you were there?
No, but we were there not that long ago.
Right, yes.
Yeah.
For the,
So this is
for the
the
back.
front of the
For the- yeah.
building, yeah.
Yeah, it's just all the front with this
Yeah.
asphalt, yeah.
What's the purpose of the addition, just out of curiosity?
So it's gonna be for the print shop. Our client is just looking to expand the existing print shop. So I know, I think there's either 5 or 6 bays in the auto body shop, and they're gonna convert one of the bays into print shop space. So they're just expanding the print shop part of the building.
The longest story is he has another print shop in Norwood and
Right.
he wants to just get everything closer.
Wants to move it down.
And so, yeah, stop renting there and move everything here. So my only question was, I looked on the plan, we talked about it, you're just putting in a slab. So you're not gonna dig up any of the asphalt? You don't have to, or you might have to go in down a few inches.
Just a frost wall for the foundation,
Okay.
just around the.
It's like 4 feet, right? Something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah, yeah, and then we're gonna backfill, so, but a slab.
A slab, okay.
Yeah. As far as the
Right,
floor.
actually, by removing an automotive bay, it may even help things, by not having things dripping and leaking onto the current
Possibly.
asphalt.
Yeah.
All right, it's a public hearing, is there anybody?
Can I just ask where the current septic system is now? I thought it would be under the front parking lot, but.
It's almost to the front of the building. It's to the left. If you're looking at the building from the left side.
Is it on there?
That's the
Along
only-
right up to the road.
It's right here.
Oh, okay.
It's a little light on our plan, but it's right about here. And the existing well is out to the back here, so well and leaching field here.
Thank you.
Has there been any thought to, like, I know right now the existing building is kind of like a kind of flat roof structure. Is there any thought that's gone into like the roof runoff from this new addition?
So we're not anticipating any changes to that as far as the stormwater runoff, so everything basically just goes, drains currently to the rear of the property, goes to wetlands.
Got it, so this will be a similar type of roof situation that we have now.
I can actually show you what the roof looks like.
Somebody's alarm's going on right there.
It's a 5-sheeter, so it goes.
I kind of do that, so.
So just for a procedural thing, we have not received a DP file number for this project.
Okay.
So, I don't anticipate that there's gonna be many comments. It's a pretty straightforward project. It's an addition in an existing paved area. But again, we do need to wait until we get a DEP file number before we can issue a permit for this.
Okay. All right, so it's just basically a shed roof?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Slight incline,
Slight pitch, yeah.
pitch, yeah, okay.
That's pitching to the back,
No, front.
front?
It pitches
Is
to
that
the-
cross section, which way is it
Parking
pitching? Towards
lot.
the parking lot, I guess?
Yeah, so it looks
I
like
can't
the
see it from
parking
here.
lot would be.
Oh, parking lot's
The
right
parking
there.
lot on the
Okay,
left
I
side.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, I gotcha.
Okay.
All right.
All right, anybody else have any questions from here? All right. So we need to continue this until we get the DEP number, is that correct? All right, so I'll entertain a motion to continue the hearing for 78 North Main Street until receipt of a DEP number,
Likely March 5th.
March 5th.
So moved.
Second.
All right,
And
Dave? Dave and Carl. All right, it's been moved and seconded to continue this hearing until March 5th. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, it's approved unanimously. All right, that takes care of the hearings. The last thing
Thank you
we have-
guys for coming.
Thank you all. The last thing we have here is to read and approve the minutes from February 5th. Has everyone read them?
I read them, but I don't remember any of it.
You weren't here either?
No.
Okay.
I'm sure it's exactly the way it went down, too.
We had kind of a big deal taking care of it, so I'm
I
sure it's fine.
expected they were gonna get to us by this, but I guess they must be back to us.
All right, are we set? Minutes? Minutes?
Clear it out really quick.
All right, so I need a motion to accept the minutes from February 5th.
So moved.
All right, Curtis, second? Second. And it's been approved, it's been motioned and seconded to, moved and seconded, thank you, to approve the minutes of February 5th. And just, although Carl and I were not here, we have to recuse ourselves or abstain. And so, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that approves 302. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All right, Carl, Curtis. All right, all those in favor of adjourning?
Right again.
All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Okay. Approved 5-0 to adjourn.
Too soon.